Did you know that Batman used drugs? Hello again, Bat fans! In this episode we're going to check out the story called Batman Venom. It's quite long and controversial, so let's begin. Batman tries to save a girl who has been taken to a cave beneath the sewers and is tied to a chair. Batman finds the girl, but the cave collapses because of the storm outside. The place slowly fills with water and Batman has to move the rocks to reach the girl before she drowns. After moving several rocks, there is just one big boulder left, but Batman is not strong enough to move it, and unfortunately, the girl dies. Batman tells the bad news to the father of the girl, but this man doesn't seem to care that much. He is a scientist who is creating a new kind of drug designed to make people stronger. He offers the drugs to Batman, but he refuses. However, Batman thinks about taking the drugs, but first he tries to capture the criminals responsible for the death of the girl. Using his detective skills, he locates them, but during the fight, he is beaten to a pulp. Batman decides to take the drugs and he becomes stronger than ever before. With this new power, Batman takes down the criminals with no effort. But there is something terribly wrong, as Batman starts laughing like a maniac. A few weeks pass and Bruce is drunk with power. With his new strength, he doesn't even need the Batsuit anymore, and he beats criminals mercilessly. Alfred tries to talk sense into him, but Bruce can only think about the drugs that make him strong. The scientist has been giving Batman the pills, turning the Dark Knight into his obedient puppet. As it turns out, the scientist is a criminal, and he has an associate, a former military general who has a weak son. One night, Batman tries to stop some criminals and with all his strength, he picks up a refrigerator and breaks a wall with it, crushing the getaway car with the criminals inside. Batman has become much more ruthless and sadistic as well as strong, but the passion for fighting crime is gone. Later, Batman learns that Alfred has resigned, and he has to face the reality. He has become addicted to the drugs, and he can't help but ask the scientist for more. The criminals realize that they can use Batman however they want, and they tell him that in order to get more drugs, he has to kill Commissioner Gordon. Without a choice, Batman finds Gordon and jumps at him from behind, but instead of attacking him, Batman warns him about the criminals who are trying to kill him. Even though Batman wants the drugs, he can't bring himself to kill Gordon. Finally, Batman realizes his mistake, and he tries to stop the scientist and the general, but they distract him using the drugs he so desires. Batman jumps after the drugs, like a trained animal, and gives the criminals the chance to escape. It is then that Batman realizes how serious is the situation. Batman calls Alfred and asks him to come back to help him. Batman is going into the Batcave, and he tells Alfred to keep him locked down there for an entire month. Batman wants to clean up his system from the drugs. The process is painful, and Alfred is tempted to let Bruce out, but he keeps the cave locked down for an entire month. In the meantime, the scientist and the general have traveled to Santa Prisca, escaping from Gotham's police. They have started to experiment with a new, more powerful version of the drug, and they use the general's son as a test subject. The boy becomes a giant brute, and not even bullets can harm him. He also obeys everything his father tells him, making him a perfect soldier. 1 month later, Alfred finally opens the cave and Bruce comes out. His hair and beard are long, and he has lost a lot of weight. The excessive muscles are gone, and his addiction to the drugs as well. Batman has kicked the drugs out of his system, and he is ready to take down the criminals responsible. The scientist and the general start expanding their army of perfect soldiers, and they use the drug to create more puppets in the island of Santa Prisca. Batman tracks them down and goes on a plane to the island along with Alfred. Their plane is spotted by the general, and they are attacked with a rocket launcher. Alfred and Batman are forced to jump out of the plane, and they get separated in the jungle of Santa Prisca. Batman starts searching for Alfred, and a few hours later, the general draws Batman's attention using Alfred as bait. They have captured the butler, and they put him in the shark-infested waters of the beach. Batman has to save Alfred, and they try to tempt him with the drugs. Batman refuses and goes to save his friend, using only his brains and his actual strength. Batman frees Alfred just as a shark appears. Batman fights the shark, and thanks to his strength, he defeats the animal. Alfred and Batman reach the shore, but Batman is attacked by the General's son. Batman fights him, but he is no match for the super soldier. The giant brute defeats Batman and knocks him unconscious, but during the fight, Alfred escapes. The General and the scientist take Batman to their secret lair, where they put him inside a deadly trap. A room with no means of escape except for a door that requires a lot of strength to open. The room will fill with water in 3 days, and Batman's only hope is to take the drugs. Or so they think. Batman uses the time he has before the water starts filling the room, and creates a device that pulls the lever to open the door using his own weight and other elements. Like this, Batman escapes the death trap, and motivated by the month he spent in torture, he goes to stop the scientist and the General. When he confronts them, Batman finds out that the General is planning to kill the scientist and get the formula of the drugs to create more soldiers. He arrives in time to stop him, but the scientist's treachery causes the General's son to kill his own father. As they say, there is no honor among thieves. The perfect soldier cries holding his father's corpse, and Batman takes the scientist back to Gotham, where a few days later he dies as a result of consuming his own drugs. The case is closed, but Batman can't forget the innocent girl who drowned and the innocent boy who cried. Batman Venom was the third storyline from the Legends of the Dark Knight series. It was the last story told in 5 issues, as Legends soon started showcasing shorter storylines. Venom was published from issues 16 to 20 of Legends of the Dark Knight. It was written by the legendary Batman writer and current editor Dennis O'Neil, with art by Trevor Von Eden. The covers for this storyline were done by the great José Luis García López, and they are among some of the most iconic covers in the history of Batman. Now, let's talk a little bit about the story. It is very clear that the story happens early in Batman's career, as Harvey Dent is still a district attorney and a close friend of Batman. So probably this storyline happens shortly after Batman Year 1. Now, there are some things here and there that are not very convincing. The whole point of the storyline is to show how Batman chooses intelligence over strength. However, to achieve these, they make some shady decisions when it comes to the writing. For instance, the whole setup with the girl drowning was too convenient. They showed Batman trying to use his muscles instead of his brains to save the girl. And that makes no sense, since we also see how he is supposed to be very smart, deducing all the other details about the criminals. In other words, Dennis O'Neil decided to use Batman's intelligence just when it served his purposes to tell the story. O'Neil makes Batman use his brains at the end, contrasting with the beginning of the story and giving the whole thing progression. And although it's interesting to see Batman fail, I can't help but feel that the whole thing was a bit forced. O'Neil was more concerned about making a statement about drugs and the use of illegal substances. Here, the drugs make Batman irrational and dumb. He becomes less intelligent the more he consumes the drugs, and that is the heart of the message of the story. Be smart, kids, don't do drugs. Now, speaking of drugs, it's actually interesting to see Batman being broken by drugs yet again. The first time it happened was in Batman the Cult, where Deacon Blackfire used drugs to break Batman. In Venom, the enemy is actually Batman's own addiction, which gives an interesting twist to the concept. In any case, this is the second time in less than 5 years that Batman has been utterly broken before his comeback, and that is not a coincidence. I'm saying all this because the moment when Batman breaks for good is coming closer and closer. I'm talking about Nightfall, the storyline where Batman is literally broken. And it's interesting because many of the concepts for Nightfall actually started here in Batman Venom. For example, the drug that Batman uses to increase his strength is the same drug that Bane uses in Nightfall. Of course, in Batman Venom, the name of the drug is never used except in the title of the story, but the word Venom will be used for the drug once Bane is introduced. Another interesting fact is that the developers of the drug take the chemical to Santa Prisca, the island where Bane was born. And yet another fact is that Alfred briefly quits from being Wayne's butler. In Nightfall, this happens all over again when Alfred resigns, but then it is much more serious than here in Venom. It really seems to me like Dennis O'Neil was already developing the concept for Nightfall, and it's very clear in this storyline. Now, there are also a couple of notable moments in the story that I would like to point out. The first one is the image of Batman coming out of the cave after he spent a whole month down there. It's a great image of a man who has gone through hell to find salvation. But is it a month really enough to grow hair and beard that long? I don't know, but maybe Bruce has to shave twice a day with that hair growth rate. Then there's also the image of Batman during the process of detoxification in the Batcave. Here, he is more a beast than a human, and shows the gruesome reality of a man who has an addiction. And finally, there's this panel where Batman jokingly mentions the shark repellent. He makes a quick joke about it, and it's a clear reference to the Batman 66 movie, where the shark repellent was among the many ludicrous gadgets of the silver screen Batman. It's a nice touch in yet another shark fight. Seriously, with this one it would be the 5th or 6th time Batman has tussled with sharks. Anyways, Batman Venom is an interesting storyline that delves into a very dark and taboo concept like addiction, and takes the Dark Knight into his darkest journey. The art in Batman Venom is phenomenal, and the story as a whole laid the groundwork for one of the greatest Batman storylines in history. But before that happens, there's still a lot to go through, and in the next episode, we go back to the regular Batman comics, where Tim Drake tackles his first mission as Robin along with Batman. For that and many more Batman videos, subscribe now and don't forget to leave a like. Until then, Godspeed, my friends.